All right, how we doing? Aaron here with Lower Lawns, and I just recently uploaded a few other videos from times past. One was back in 2018. I don't even know why I still have those clips and that footage, but I just kind of did the best I could with it. So if you watch those, thanks, appreciate it. Thank you for suffering through the horrible audio in the really old one, but yeah, I wanted to make a quick sort of in-between video, in between the vlogs, and talk about some changes I want to make next year. Because I make changes every single year, and it really, I don't know, I feel like you almost have to, because if you do the same thing constantly, there's just no way that, in my opinion, if you're not changing something, you're not improving, I don't think. And I feel like every time I've made a little tweak here and there, it's been for the better, you know. And this year's going to be pretty drastic, pretty dramatic. So worth talking about, right? So going into 2026, a few changes I want to make are basically the way my contracts and my services are set up, right? And this is good for you guys too, maybe as advice. It's mostly just me talking, but maybe you can get something out of this. So the way my contracts have been set up has basically been lawn mowing, landscaping, and then other, which your other is like, you know, raising the limbs, cutting the lower limbs, you know, cutting back a wood line, trimming a ditch, trimming a, you know, the other stuff, right? You know, one of the other items for me has always been spraying weeds, weeds in flower beds, weeds in driveway quacks, all that kind of stuff, right? And the reason being, like, Roundup is expensive, you know, the additive, the extra, you know, juice to make it prevented in the future, the pre-emergent, right? On top of the Roundup, it's expensive, right? And so I want to get paid for it. And it's been a point of contention because that's the way I've kind of been doing it for the last 3 years, because, like, again, it is more expensive. So basically what I've done all this year is looked for other areas to save money, to hopefully try and kind of offset the cost of that Roundup product, right, for those weeds and driveway cracks and stuff, so that this year, 2026, we can just include those in the basic weekly lawn maintenance service. Now, I'm still on the fence about it, but I'm going to try it for a year and just see, because for me, I want to see it done. I hate how things look, because things just grow up and people don't want to pay the extra, you know, 15 or 20 bucks for the service, and it frustrates me, because it's literally just 15 or 20 bucks, right? And if every single person that I mowed for did that, it would pay, you know, with a little bit of profit on the product, it would pay for that service. And like I say, 15, 20 bucks, you know, it's really not much. But using that logic, it's really not much. So why don't I just try to save in other little areas, and next year we're going to try to include that in just the regular basic maintenance. Because the thing that's ended up happening is I'm OCD. I hate how it looks, and I end up doing the crap anyway for free, you know. And then it causes confusion, because it's like, oh, well, my cracks and stuff weren't sprayed, and it's like, well, it's not really included, but you did it before. And it's like, yeah, but that's just because I hate how it looks. Like, it just drives me crazy. And, you know, so yeah, I did, but it's really not included. And, you know, it just puts me in a spot, right? So next year I'm just going to suck it up, and I'm just going to include it. And I know a lot of folks are just kind of including it anyway, but again, dude, it's the point of, like, it kind of brings me into my next situation, right? Which is these big old giant properties that I've been mowing. That's my second change. I want to cut out a lot of these giant properties. So for perspective, I have currently 9 properties that take me 2 hours or more to fully mow alone. Okay. And there's one property in particular, just to give you some kind of time frame ideas. I had an employee for most of the year of 2025, and even with an employee, once the guy got trained, you know, this one particular yard takes me 2.5 hours alone. Mowing, weed eating, edging, blowing off sidewalks, blowing leaves out into the woods. It's 2.5 hours alone. With a trained employee, we could only get that down to about an hour and 45 minutes. And by trained, I mean he was running a mower, I was running a mower, and you know, my phone's overheating. Why does the iPhone overheat? Anyway, I was running a mower, he was running a mower, and we could only get it down to about an hour and 45, which is just too long, you know. And it puts me in a weird spot again because, you know, if I'm going to be including spraying weeds and flower beds and spraying weeds and cracks, that adds an extra 20-30 minutes to a big old property like that, you know. And it just isn't viable, you know. So these big giant properties, while yes, it is nice to get all your money in one spot, I could never provide the full high-end service that I want to provide and charge what I want to make it feel right. You know, to make it feel like I'm actually earning for my time, because that stuff is it's expensive. You know, these big old giant properties are expensive. You know, a couple of these that I work for, they have giant wraparound landscapes with dozens and dozens and dozens of plants. And then when you tell them that their 200 shrubs are going to cost $1,200 to trim every time, well, they're just going to get tall every single year. You know, they're just going to get massive every single year because no one prioritizes this, and no one has pre-thought into the future that, oh wait, there's a maintenance cost associated with this, right? And a few times over the years, what I've seen happen is I'll price it, we'll do it once or twice, or maybe we'll maintain it for a season or so, and then the person just decides it's not worth the money because it's a lot of money, and it's not that I'm doing a bad job or anything, it's just they don't like it. So what they'll do is they'll go rip it all out. You know, I've had customers pull all of their shrubs out with their truck and just leave the giant holes because they didn't want to pay to have hedges trimmed. So now they just have giant craters in their yard. You know, I've had 3 different customers do something like that over the years, and it's insane to me. It's insane to me. And they're always these big giant properties with hundreds of shrubs, right? I guess I don't know if they just moved in and didn't think about it, or they just decided they didn't want to spend that money or whatever. But like I say, it's always these big old properties, you know. But then I think about teeny tiny little properties that have 6 shrubs, 8 shrubs, you know. They don't have 2 acres to mow. They have, you know, 2,000 square feet. That's nice, you know. They don't have, you know, 15 yards of mulch to be installed. They need like a yard and a half, you know, whatever it is. And those people never complain. And I make a lot more money on these smaller properties because you put a minimum price of, you know, $325 on a mulch install. Well, then you get one of these tiny mulch installs, and not only are you getting a profit, you can spend the extra time to really do a high-end service, you know. One of the things that drives me crazy is you get these guys that'll go onto these, you know, teeny tiny properties, and they'll just kind of throw the mulch on top of the dirt and call it a day, and it just doesn't look good, right? And then the grass comes up through it. They don't do any of the prep work to prevent the weeds from coming back and all that kind of stuff. Or worse, they'll put out weed fabric, and then 2 years later it's trash and looks horrible. So yeah, So yeah, all of that to say, I'm thinking about cutting out a large majority of these big old properties, and only keeping the ones that, you know, are either sentimental or I really actually enjoy, you know, or that I just get paid appropriately for. Because I've got 3 that I do really get paid appropriately for, right? So yeah, and like I say, if those 9 properties, let's put it in perspective, those 9 properties take me 2 hours or more to mow. If I cut out 6 of them, that's 12 hours a week. That's an entire day, you know? And I think about that, and I think about, you know, those 6 properties. It's like, sure, you're getting, you know, $2,500 a month or $3,000 a month for those 6 properties. Like, the pay's not horrible, but 12 hours a week, if I get a bunch of 30-minute lawns, just do the math. I mean, it feels like I could just make so much more. And obviously I've seen comments of people like, oh yeah, these properties are huge, and you know, the small properties are worth it. And it is. I think it is. The issue with the small properties is, that I found is, I'm good at what I do. I'm quick. I'm in and out. I never get complaints on the quality of the work. I get complaints on, you were here for 15 minutes and you're wanting $45? That is $180 an hour. It's like, well, no, it's not. Because I got drive time, I've got equipment costs, I've got insurance. You see this guy here that's working with me? He's got payroll. I pay taxes on him. You know, like, it's not $180 an hour, right? Like that's the thing. Like, people think they're mathematicians or something, and they want to hold that over you. So it's a whole different set of issues, right? It's just what set of issues are you really wanting to fight with? You know, because I look at my schedule, and I looked at this a few months ago, and at that time I had 32 customers, okay, and I was bringing in $7,500 a month, and that was all just the mowing, no landscaping or anything included in that. Which, if I was priced properly, if I was getting what I think the market price is on those properties, if I wasn't underpriced on a lot of them, it would be $8,600 a month, right? And so that was something I was considering, was just increasing everyone's price and letting whoever drops off drop off. But looking at it further, it just seems like these smaller properties would be better. But I think about a lot of these guys on YouTube. You know, there was one guy, he posted, he's got 65 customers and he only makes 10 grand a month. And I mean, only makes 10 grand a month. And to me, that sounds miserable, because I don't have time with 32 customers, and I'm making what should be 86, but let's call it 7,500. If I was only making 2,500 extra bucks a month and I had more than double the amount of customers that I have now, I wouldn't do this. I wouldn't do this, you know? So if I do switch to smaller properties, it's got to be people who want full service, who want to pay for everything. And, you know, I don't want to get back up to 65 customers, because I've been there and I hated it. It was horrible. So if I drop these 6 and get my 12 hours, then I need to get 12 new customers of small lawns who want weekly service with lawn treatments, with landscaping, and that should way more than offset the 6 that I got rid of, you know. And if I'm at 41 customers, I drop 6, I naturally lose 4 or 5, you know, worst case scenario, because that happens. You know, if you're new in business, you're going to lose customers going into next year. It happens. So let's say I drop 10 and I'm at 31 customers again, because I've gained customers since I looked at my numbers last. But so I go into next year with 31 regular customers. I add 12 small lots, full service. You know, am I, now that I have 12 more extra customers, am I going to be feeling overworked still? You know, that's always the question, right? Like how do you find those right customers that you're able to get everything done, be done at a reasonable time, and not feel overworked, or, you know, like, you know, because some of these properties, man, it's just ridiculous. Like, you feel like you're out there for ages, but I don't know. But yeah, just rambling about changes for next year. I really want to get a shop built this winter because I just need a spot to work, you know. Our current shed setup is what came with our house many years ago, and it's not watertight, so all of my stuff is like crammed in one side that does stay dry. So I need to figure out the shed situation this year, so maybe I'll have a little mini workshop or something. I really don't know. I've gotten some pricing on some work, and I don't know what it is about our area, dude, but I hear prices from you guys on YouTube of some really crazy work, and I'm like, you're either lying, or we live in an area that, even though we're supposedly poverty stricken and broke and poor and run down, somehow everything costs an absolute premium fortune. I don't understand. It's ridiculous, but I don't know. That's life, right? So anywho, that's my rambling. Basically, yeah, I'm cutting back on the big giant yards, and I'm just going to include a lot of extras in my basic mowing service, like, yes, the weed spraying and whatever, but also a couple little extra other things, and just the overall product will just cost more, and it'll be like, if you don't want it, fine, cool, well, let me know if you need someone later, but, or if you have trouble finding someone or whatever. But yeah, it'll just kind of be what it is. I don't know. Let me know if you're making any changes. If you got this far, comment the word change. You know, let's get a little participation going, and go ahead and subscribe, and tell all your friends, and have a good leaf season. See ya.